G'day everyone, welcome to the top 8 Global Discord Season 4 game, Bill Jr. versus Toreadory. Both ex-Lion players, well current Lion players, but trying something out a little bit different for this season. Both amazing players, Toreadory dominating the Australian scene, and Bill Jr. I think he's hit at least top 32 for pretty much every Discord season. Which is pretty amazing. So let's, without further ado, it looks like they're about to start now. So let's look at the game. Wishing each other the best of luck. Just move this all set up there. This is no doubt going to be quite an amazing game. Both very, very skilled players. I guess while they're setting up, we can just have a quick squiz at their decks. This is Toreadory's Crane deck, so he's playing Crane with Lion Splash. Most notable inclusion here is Stand Your Ground. So ready for battle, there's a lot of bow effects, a lot of Muramoto's Furies, etc. So ready for battle is a fantastic card for Crane here, and Stand Your Ground is probably the cute inclusion, but in previous games we've seen that with all the honourable effects, it's actually managed to keep some characters around for that turn longer, which makes a big difference in these games. Just the one censure, which is an interesting choice, and no test of skills. So that's apart from that, fairly standard deck there. And then Bill's, he's called this Crab Jank, but it's kind of, I'm not sure if it is really jank. It seems to be a fairly standard looking, just very solid Crab deck, relying around the Spyglasses for the extra card draw and the Talisman to keep you around for those few turns or longer. Okay, so the game has begun. Bill has flipped Steadfast, Witch Hunter, and Vengeful. Pretty good start. I think usually a lot of these crab players, they don't mind. They'd like to see the Caillou Envoy first, to try and threaten with that good old way of the crab. If people bring out their preferred personalities, it looks like Crisis Break is going to be the choice. I think Crisis Break is a pretty solid choice because kind of that character can be in a couple of conflicts a turn with its untap, and then if you've got a few other attachments like your Spyglasses, etc., you can start to put a lot of pressure on the opponent. Bill passed first, and this has been quite a quick game. It seems like both of these players know each other very well. They do discuss Lion strategy with each other, as also that it's going to probably be quite a good game because they know each other very, very well from a gameplay perspective. So this is no doubt going to be a bit of a blockbuster. So the early way the Crane to enable the Voice of Honors. So this is a very good start for Toreadory in a very tough matchup. The Crane versus Crab at the moment is known as one of the tougher matchups for Crane. So this will no doubt be quite a tough game. But having your cancels online straight away is very useful. Both bid 5, probably not a lot of surprises there on for turn 1. That seems to be the standard at the time of broadcast. Straight away, Crisis Breaker smashing into the Manicured Gardens. It's favourable ground. Just Toreador considering what he's going to do in defense here. Void Ring, pretty standard. That Doji Challenger can really screw with Bill's plans. So, because it can, the Doji Challenger can harpoon in on the attack, so it can bring someone in when she's attacking. So I think that the Ring of Void is signaling that it's not so much about saving the fate on the Crisis Breaker, and it's more so about removing the fate from the Challenger. Watch Command has just been attached to the Crisis Breaker, put some early honor pressure on Toreadory. So just the Brash Samurai, who's honoured himself. Toreadory just taking a moment to reflect, to see what he's going to do. There's always the option here, if he decides to give up the province, that he could favourable ground out to try and threaten 2 provinces this turn. Threatening 2 provinces this turn will be tough because the Crisis Breaker will allow a better defense for the Crab player. And there's obviously Crab tricks there. But it looks like Toreadory is not giving up this province at all and is actually trying to win the conflict. So attaching the Flying Katana. So he's now got 6 force in defense versus the 4 in attack of Bill. Okay, so this is interesting. Bill's played the Banzai, so he is gaining that additional force to try to make sure that he has the chance of taking the province, because he's only really doing this if he absolutely wants to take the province. There's 3 Banzais in the deck. They're very key cards in this matchup in terms of actually trying to break. So he's not breaking, which means he must have some. Obviously, Bill's got some other tricks up his sleeve. So it'll be interesting to see what what his game plan is for this battle. Okay, charged in Kaizen. Now this charging in Kaizen is quite interesting. So because because Toreadory is running those Test of Honors, he can cheat out and do a bit of a fate cheat here, because if he manages to find a way to honor Kakita Kaizen, potentially by favorable grounding him in a later political conflict and court gaming him, or using a Way of the Crane, then he can keep Kaizen around for an extra turn. So he's paid 1 fate to get 2 turns worth of Kaizen. And Kaizen, who's the wall of text duelist, I've got up on screen there, you can read that complicated text. I won't read it out. There you go, we've actually got the Way of the Crane. So can be quite a useful personality. We've seen that they've both got pretty good draws, it seems. With the charged out Steadfast Witch Hunter, they are absolutely going hell to leather in this first turn. Like this is usually, a lot of the time people talk about turn 1 as a sort of probing and poking turn, where really what you're trying to do is set up for the rest of the game. You're trying to flip as many provinces over as possible whilst conserving as many resources as possible. They're both using a lot of cards from their hand. They're using a lot of tricks. They're using a lot of fate, attaching the Watchman. We can see now that Bill's only got 1 fate left. Toreadore's still got a couple in reserve. The province did break there. I think that's something that Toreadory was a bit sad to see. But I think that once the Steadfast was out there, it was all over for Toreadory. So just removing Kakita Kaizen from the challenge is probably a smart idea. And we did see Bill. I missed this play. There's a lot going on very quickly in this game, but we did see Bill assassinate the Brave Samurai. So it was quite brutal. Now the challenge here is the Doji Challenger. Fantastic personality when you're going first, much like Haruf or the Scorpion. But choosing a military challenge first is probably that's a tough, potentially a bad idea, because that the Crisis Breaker can wake up, can untap himself, because the Crisis Breaker has an amazing ability, right? Being able to untap yourself, or ready yourself, I apologize, and move yourself into battle means that very defensive on the military side. So I would expect a conflict of the political type, and we are getting that. The Earth Ring. Earth Ring, because they've used a lot of resources, Earth Ring's pretty good choice here. So you can see that there's a preemptive attaching of the Ornate Fan to the Crisis Breaker, signaling that Bill's not confident he's going to be winning this conflict. I think we are going to see a return break here. Toreadore's got the force to break. So Bill's already down to 5 honor on turn 1. So the bids next turn will be interesting. They may just both bid 5 and they're both playing really super aggressively. We might see some lower bids. It's odd here seeing the Skirmisher played, as Bill doesn't have any military conflicts left and has the Crisis Breaker to defend future conflicts. Bill lost his second assassination from the Earth Ring, and he's probably pretty happy about that, because at 5 honor and just with the state of this game, I don't think he wants to use that assassination. That's very, very risky. So that's probably one of the better cards to lose from his hand. That's the reason why. Is he's just straightened the Witch Hunter using the Witch Hunter's ability to straighten the Crisis Breaker, because the Crisis Breaker now can go in, attack politically, and then still be able to defend militarily. So it was a bit slow on my part as a caster and not figuring out why the skirmisher was used, and that's probably because I don't play a lot of crab. But we do have the breaker coming in to the Shameful. So both players here are very quickly playing, and what we have seen there is that the Shameful Display was used to dishonor the Crisis Breaker and I guess honor the already honored Kaizen. Kaizen is just that honorable. Yeah, and that was the end of that conflict. So a quick claim from Toreadory. Uh, so that's interesting. By defend what Toreadory's done there is he thinks that he didn't want to have a chance of losing that second province, and he's gone on the defense rather than doing the double trade. I think that's probably the safe move here. The favor has passed along to Toreadory, but unfortunately he did not flip a Yoshi for him. So I think that first turn is Toreadory probably came out slightly on top, but the board of the crab player is very, very strong. Couple of vanguards. Those vanguards are very key in this slot. Like, I feel like the crane player is on a little bit of a time limit here. With those vanguards coming into play, it means the Witch Hunter and the Crisis Breaker are going to be around for many turns. They're probably going to be around for the rest of the game because the Vanguard warriors can add fate to them after they've gone in and attacked. They can sacrifice themselves to go and add a little bit of fate to the Berserker and the Steadfast Witch Hunter. One of them will probably sacrifice themselves to use the Witch Hunter's ability to stand one of his characters, but it does mean that Bill is in a very strong position here. A big part of the Crab Clan game is around attrition. It's around being able to out-survive your opponent. Toreadory needs to be needs to be looking at what's his game plan to actually close this game out. And the problem is if he's too defensive here, although he kind of needs to be, is he needs to find a way to at least threaten a province this turn, because it's going to be very difficult for him to defend. Just as a note, we did see Kakita Kaizen go to the bin, which means that Toreadory wasn't lucky enough to pick up one of his stand your grounds to save Kaizen, which is probably a bit unlucky. It's very threatening board from Bill at the moment. So you can see Bill bid one. He kind of needed to get a little bit. The risk was that if Bill bid high there and Toreadory bid low, you get to that danger zone of honor. But Bill's well out of the danger zone now. They're both on 7 honor. It's a very manageable honor total for both of them. So I would expect to see, probably for a little while, unless somebody plays an assassination, we'll see those bids, those mid-tier bids of your 2 or 3. Some quick passes here. So this is the power of the Doji Challenger. The Doji Challenger is going to be able to draw one of Bill's characters in to the conflict. Try and prevent additional pressure being applied to the next, for the rest of the turn. But interestingly, Bill has just said, you know what, the way that I'm going to win this game is by out-surviving Toreadory. All I need to do is defend here. So he's not worried about taking multiple provinces this turn. He's actually digging in. So the Challenger is likely now going to pull in another one of Bill's characters, and just Toreadory's just going to kind of concede the fact he ain't winning this conflict. So a little bit of action here. Crisis Breaker. Challenger moved in the Crisis Breaker, but the favorable ground has been utilized. And I think that when the game was in sort of single core, is people were not as, I guess, excited about favorable ground. But I think that we've seen that, especially over the last 2-3 months, is most decks are packing at least 2 favorable grounds. That ability to move characters in and out of conflicts is really really potent. And these harpoon abilities, it was quite fortuitous that Bill drew that favorable ground. It has enabled the Crisis Breaker to get away, making that challenger less effective. Um, Toreadory has dropped himself to 4 honor by assassinating one of those Vanguard warriors. The Vanguard warrior is probably considered one of the best assassination targets, because especially in the first conflict, to assassinate a Vanguard warrior is very strong, because it means that you're removing that Vanguard warrior from the conflict, so it's not very useful in that conflict, and then it can't be used to either add a fate to one of Bill's characters or to stand up one of Bill's characters. So it's a really powerful character in the context of the board texture that Bill has, and it's even stronger. It's probably it is a top priority for Assassinate. And I've talked to Toreador about sometimes, and he's kind of relayed this to me, saying sometimes he'll hold an Assassinate and he'll keep it in play, knowing that depending on his matchup, there's generally speaking 1 or 2 characters that he's actually reserving it for. So it might be the Swordsmith in the Dragon matchup, or it could be the any number of other characters in per matchup, and Vanguard and Caillou Envoy and Vanguard Warrior are 2 key characters here in the Crab matchup. Just having a look at Bill's deck. How many Way of the Crabs is he packing? He's got 3 Way of the Crabs we're seeing here. So 3 Way of the Crabs means that these little guys can do a lot of damage. There's a big hand deficit here. We can see Bill's only got 2 versus Toreadory's 8 cards, and so we're likely. So this is going to be, potentially means that there's not a lot of tricks up Bill's sleeve, and Toreadory's still got 8 cards. So he's got a lot. There's a lot of time left in this turn, right? So we're now seeing the return conflict. The Vanguard Warrior is going after the Meditations on the Dow. Of the Dow. On the Dow, I was right first time around. Watering threatening to, well, I guess to stand up the Steadfast, get a free stand up. Why not save the second stand up for later on? Recycle your personalities, your characters as much as they can. It's a huge fate saving. This is kind of a tricky choice here. Toreadory really trying to find a way to be able to bust a province this turn. There is that clock. It's much tougher unless Toreadory's got a hopeful swing turn with Yoshi coming up. But if that doesn't happen, he's in dire straits here. So just trying to find out if he can defend with the minimal possible resources, and he's decided to do that by sending nobody. And turns out it was a bit of a fake out. Province wasn't taken, so there's probably a sigh of relief there. Only 1 card left now in Bill's hand. Crisis Breaker is quite the monster here. So he's got the Watch Commander and the 2 on 8 fans. So that's what's that? 6 -1 for the glory, for the dishonor. So he's got 5 political skill and 3 military skill, and just can keep on coming. Can be in almost every conflict if he wants to be. So a bit of protection from policy debate here. Just have a look again to see if Bill's using. So Bill's actually running one policy debate, and we have 3 policy debates there from Toreadory. So a lot of the time with these conflicts, you're trying to dodge policy debates. Look, there's 1 card left in Bill's hand. Could be a reprieve. Who knows? Probably not, given the didn't attach it during the Ring of Earth attack. They're both, probably something interesting to note is they both have a bit of fate in reserve. And so by having a bit of fate in reserve, it does give them options for next turn. I mean, Toreadory has enough fate to play a political rival without, or a couple of Stewies of Law. And Bill's got that extra fate, so that next turn might be a monster turn. It might be the time to spend a bit of fate, put a lot of pressure on, bring out that extra character than you usually would. So this is interesting. So I think what Bert's passed, sorry, Toreadory has passed his conflict here, and so's Bill. Both unwilling to commit. I think Bill, it was quite obvious, but I think Toreadory was realizing he didn't know how to. He wasn't going to be able to defend that second conflict if he assigned anyone, and he didn't want to risk. I guess he wanted to make sure he secured the Imperial favor, and we see the Yoshi. So both players getting decent flips. I think that Bill could have got a slightly better flip if he had flipped a Casado or another or a Caillou Envoy. Probably the Imperial Palace. It is useful because it'll hopefully mean that Bill has a chance of removing the favor from the Crane player who's now got Yoshi on the board. But the Yusuke is going to help with the hand problems here. We're probably going to see a bit of one from Toreadory, and we'll be seeing a bit of much greater than 1 from Bill. I might even see a bid from. I think Toreadory knows that Bill's going to bid at least 3, so he may be bidding 2 here anyway, just to get maximum hand advantage. Although 4 honor is still very low. Yeah. So they've both played very conservatively here. That's an extremely disciplined bid of 2 from Bill. Quite shocked to that, really. But I guess with the Watch Commander on board, Bill's now maybe seeing, you know what, I need to keep the possibility of a dishonor victory on the table. I need options. It's not just this monosyllabic, one-sided conquest deck. Keeping the dishonor victory open is actually quite important for him now. So that makes sense. So their honor totals are about even now, but still, they're kind of a few out of that danger zone. But it's a bit delicately balanced. I think that the hand advantage that we're going to see now from Bert is significant. They've both got pretty beefy boards, quite strong boards. We are seeing a lot of resilience from Bill, though, with the Iron Mine able to save the Steadfast at the end of the turn, or probably the Crisis Breaker. One of the challenges with Toreadory here, seeing the reprieve come on the Crisis Breaker, is that there is no attachment control whatsoever in Toreadory's deck, which means that reprieve is going to stick around the Crisis. So we're going to see the Crisis Breaker and the Steadfast Witch Hunter stay around for another turn, and there's nothing Bert can do about that, apart from cheating. Always an option. Don't think they'll take that option though. So 10 to 10 to 2, but it wasn't a province break, and that's tough. So we're just working out what this next conflict is going to be. Looked like it was going to be on the gardens, but we're going to uncover a new province maybe. So seeing a political meditations on the Tao. Um, this is actually quite a strong option here from Toreadory. Being able to steal an honor from Bill is significant in the context of where we are in the game. Honor means cards, and cards win games. It's going to make it harder and harder for Bill to I mean, Bill's looks like he's just going to be bidding one for the rest of the game here. Um, and, Bill's looking at this. It's kind of a tricky choice. Like, usually you would just strip the fate from the savvy politician and it'd be no big deal because you want to remove that character from the table. But now with Asami being a significant long-term threat for Bill, maybe you're gonna, the Void Ring's already been claimed, so you can't. I still think the savvy politician is probably the better option. It's tough. So the Yusuke's at least going to give Bill some card draw here. So one thing that's very impressive about watching this game is that, and especially when you're going to play these top tier games, when you're playing in Koteis and live tournaments and you're on the hour time limit, being able to play fast is quite important because when you get these big board states like this, it's quite often it can be overwhelming and people ask for time and they'll spend, 5 minutes on a decision. And the challenge with that is quite often these games go to time. And yes, this format is untimed, but the fact that it's untimed and they're still playing at this pace with quite a complicated board texture kind of shows you the high skill. And these Discord tournaments, these global Discord tournaments, they really do bring some of the absolute best players in the world together to play. And nobody could argue. I mean, this game here, there's been a lot of tricky decisions that have been, but the optimal or close to optimal decision seems to have been made by both these players every time, just because they've played the game a lot, and they're at the sort of the peak. So Witch Hunter has been dishonored. We could be seeing, a for shame to try and bow in a moment, but kind of unnecessary, really, as long as the province is breaking. That Shrewd Yusuke, 2 fate seems like a lot of fate to put on a potentially assassinatable character, but I think at this stage of the game with the 5 and 6 honor scores, nobody's really playing an assassinate unless it's absolutely key. So in Bill's mind, he's going to see at least 3 cards. Well, you'll see hopefully 3 cards out of this Shrewd Yusuke. They seem 1 now, so there's potentially 2 more to go. And cards equal life. And with this Spyglass, this is kind of now Bill's starting to see his engine kick off to regain a hand and start getting some cards to help, I guess, help him take out the rest, with his game plan and hopefully take some provinces, reclaim some ground. This is really important, what we've seen here. By attacking the rebuild province, destroying the iron mine, and then cancelling the rebuild is super important from Toreadory. He probably has held that voice of honor for specifically that particular card. He may have not even if there had been a Casada and there had been a charged in or some other super impactful action, Toreadory may have just held on to that voice of honor, knowing that the rebuild on the iron mine, which keeps these big beefy characters around, that just needs to go. And look, there's a reprieve. Let's come on to the Steadfaster. So that's the second reprieve that we've seen now. So the Steadfast Witch Hunter will stay around. But, Toreador is thinking, only 1 more to go? one more reprieve? 2 more rebuilds? And I think that was the... if we just have a look in the Dynasty discard pile, 2 Iron Mines. So we've got, how many is he probably playing? 3 rebuilds, I'm guessing. If we have a look here, 3 times rebuild. We've got 3 rebuilds. We've got 3 Iron Mines. And now we've got the 3rd reprieve to go. So we've got 1 Iron Mine, 2 rebuilds, and a reprieve. So there's still 4 saves left in his deck. Oh dear. Poor Toreadory is blaspheming in chat. He's a bit after that second reprieve has come down. Very tough game. and it kind of shows you that when you're not playing attachment control, which is the decision that Toreadory's made in this Crane deck, to concentrate on saving his own characters by using the Lion Splash and advance his own aggressive game, um, an offensive game, rather than be, I guess, reactive. He's being very proactive. When you're proactive and you don't have as many reactive options, it does mean that you get this disgusting Crisis Breaker on the table. God. So Toreadory's got to see out this next turn. Jeez. You're almost at this stage here. You're looking to probably on the offense win that political conflict, but apart from that, you're kind of as the Crane player here, going all out defense. You're making sure that this turn here, as much as possible, you don't lose a province. And just seeing out this, because hopefully for Toreadory's sake, the Crisis Breaker leaves the table. Once that Crisis Breakers leave the table, that's a lot of pressure off Toreadory. But if you Bill, I think you've got a chunk of fate here. You've got, the Shrewd Yuzaki is going to be an important character to pull out from the Dynasty. Get that multiple card draw going. Really try and punch your way back into the game. Okay, so the Borderland Defender has come out with 3 fate. So it's rare that you'll see somebody put 3 fate on a character that's not called Kitsu Spirit Walker. So the reason he's done this is because knowing what's in Toreadory's deck, knowing there's no attachment control, that Borderlands Defender can be a real key, because the Borderlands Defender doesn't bow during defense. So Shameful Displays, the box, the Shizuka Toshi box, are unusable. So that's going to be a character that Bill wants to see essentially stay around for the rest of the game. So Guest of Honor has hit the table. There's only 2 cards in Bill's hand. Guest of Honor is a super impactful character in the Crane Mirror match against Scorpion, against Lion. Not so much against Dragon. Against Lion, kind of not very useful against the Crab player, because Way of the Crab and Rebuild, 2 of the most impactful conflict cards in the Crab's deck, can be used outside the conflict window. And Guest of Honor's ability turns off events, but it's only during conflicts that the Guest of Honor is participating in. So if we think about what's in Bill's deck there, it can turn off the policy debate. It means that you're not going to get... so there's a policy debate, charges, not much really else. There's one mountain cannot stand, the mountain stands. We are seeing a phone break, so whilst that phone break is going on, let's just have a look. So that Guest of Honor, I mean, the Banzais can occasionally be quite impactful. Court games, probably minimal at this stage. Certainly early in the game, the court games are very important to try and turn off the Voice of Honors, the cancels. But there's 15 attachments in this deck and characters, and the Crab deck's very much Dynasty heavy. We can see that even though Yoshi's been out and Toreadory's bid a little bit more aggressively, they both bid 1 this turn, but historically, is with the conflict deck size, we can see there's only been a 3-card advantage so far to Toreadory. Most of the conflict cards of Bill are actually attached to his people. So both giant boards. So I guess we can do a quick recap. If we look at the Crane's boards, got the Guest of Honor. We've just talked through that. Brash Samurai. That's someone who could potentially, well, in general, would be able to solo a province. At this stage here, is not really going to be able to solo a province given the large nature of Bill's board, but can at least be a beefy contributor. That 4 force that could potentially be turned to 6 is good. Savvy Politician is going to be invaluable here. If we have a look at Toreadory's, he's used all 3 of his of Way of the Cranes, and he's used 2 court games. So he's only got 1 court game left. So in terms of being able to honor the Savvy Politician, we've got a Shameful, and display, and 1 court game's left. So trying to trigger Savvy Politician's ability is going to be difficult. and nobody claimed the favor at the end of last turn, which is quite an important fact because it means Yoshi's not going to be able to, Kakita Yoshi's not going to be able to use his ability, which draws those 3 cards, ultra important. Yeah, and then we have Asami, and I think Asami is a very key character in this game at this stage as well. Asami is going to put that continual pressure on Bill to remove his honor. So this ring right here, this void ring, is actually quite important. I think that Bill will very likely want to be stripping. Usually like you auto target Kakita Yoshi if Kakita Yoshi comes out, and you want that character off the table as fast as possible. But I would give pause if I'm in Bill's spot, and Bill's obviously a much better player than I am. But I'd be giving pause, and I'd be seriously considering Kakita Asami as a target for your void ring. Being able to take that honor off, it's that extra push, that extra honor. Whilst it just enables Toreador to not be stressing about being dishonored out by Bill, even though there is that watch commander on the table, and there's a few other effects I guess in play that Bill can put pressure on. With that hand size differential, I think that Asami is very, very strong, and it's I still think there's absolutely nothing wrong if you're going to go for the void ring. If Bill's going to hit the void ring up, there's absolutely nothing wrong with stripping that fate off Yoshi, and it's probably still the most sane and sensible thing to do. But Asami's just she's so potent in this situation. All right, so let's have a quick look at Bill's board here. He's just said, no, his car's broken down. Oh my god, poor Bill. His car's broken down, and he thought he put it somewhere safe, but the police are disagreeing. Anyway, enough of that. Enough of that. Hope everything goes right, Bill, with your car there. But in the meantime, we're back to the game. Borderland. This defender now has a spyglass. There's 3 or 4 extra cards for for Bill over the next 4 turns. Oh my god. This is those crab decks. They have so much staying power. Okay, so we may have another interruption in a few minutes' time. In the meantime, let's just enjoy the brash samurai trying to take out. Look at this brash samurai. He is brash. On a board like this, he's deciding to attack alone, fire to the Manicure Gardens. So I guess that was the one other effect that I missed out on, how to honor Savvy Politician through Ring of Fire. So we've seen no Way of the Crabs used so far. We'll see none this turn. Well, actually, potentially none. I guess we've got the Shrujisuki who can... Shrujisuki who's able to draw cards. So Bill has used... yeah, so Bill used his last card was the policy debate. Sorry, I missed that. So there's no cards left. We can see that the Crisis Breaker... So we're seeing a 6-4, 6-6, so it's now an even conflict. Toreadory is still ahead, but not able to crush. If there is a Banzai played, we will potentially see a crush now because the box has been used. There's not a huge amount of options on the table now for Bill. And Toreadory is passed, which is unfortunate in terms of closing out the game. We're still a fair way off that, but I think we'll see Savvy Politician get honoured here, I would imagine. Just wait for the ring effect to come off. Yeah. Now the other option was to dishonour the Caillou Envoy, which is not a bad option because it kind of helps force that dishonour condition, a second victory condition, and potentially a very strong victory condition for Toreadory. But having all of your characters on it is very, very powerful, like massive stat boost, right? So even though there's an overwhelming board state, that crab board looks absolutely terrifying. The crane board looks pretty scary too, especially with 5 cards to 1. So these spyglasses are just so valuable. They're the gifts that keep giving. This has been an absolutely amazing game. So the watering's been selected. It's a very interesting choice. I guess, that fate might be impactful. If you think about, it's 5 fate to 3 fate now. Denying that 1 fate of Toreadory may mean is Toreadory running. He's got 1 political rival that we haven't seen yet. So maybe it was to deny a political rival with 1 fate on it. But valid targets would be savvy politician. I don't know. I guess the other option was that it was to deny the watering on the return. Maybe that fate's really important. There's some card in Bill's deck that I just haven't. What is Bill running in his deck that could potentially cost fate here? We've got talismans, watch commanders, wayfinders. They're all very, very cheap. I think this is one of those those top tier player ring selections that I'm kind of a little bit behind. Doesn't even resolve it. There's no valid targets. Okay, we've seen the doorbell has been rung at Bill's house, so he's just going to check in with the police and give a statement. So I'm sure we'll be back in 5 minutes. Let's just take a little bit of a status here, right? I think Toreador has done an amazing job in being able to build his board to this state against Crab, who just keep coming and coming. The number of attachments, getting those spyglasses. Was that the 3rd spyglass? Have we already seen a spyglass move? We haven't. So the 2nd spyglass. So we will see at the end of this turn, both spyglasses are going to remain on Bill's side. The crisis breaker is likely to leave the table, unless that one card that you drew was the 3rd reprieve, which I think would drive Toreador into a violent rage, channeling his inner Akodo, his inner line. So there's a lot of card draw on the Crab side, and that's probably what Toreador is really worried about. Being able to, if those spyglasses, if Bill didn't hit the 2nd spyglass or some of the Yusukis, and I guess that's the power of this Crab deck, is it does just have obscene card draw to rival the Crane. Potentially more card draw. Actually, it does have a lot more card draw on the Crane in this particular scenario, and the spyglasses are staying around. Yeah. So it's just a very tough spot for Toreadory. So we've seen two. We've got Toreador is the first player, so he's about to declare his 2nd conflict. And so if we look at that, 2nd conflict here, is it's going to be a political. I I really think both players. I really think both players here are quite evenly matched. I think what Toreadory is really trying to achieve here is get that really nasty part of the board to just disappear, and that's why maybe Toreadory hasn't been as aggressive as chat has wished. It was quite a conservative decision. And there's something that Toreadory actually says. I've heard him say a few times. Is that there's a secret to L5R. Sometimes is actually learning that defense is good. Um, you know, I think a lot of the time we think that we need to be out there, optimally, aggressively taking provinces, making sure we're maintaining province parity, etc. Sometimes, if there's a nasty board state, just commit to the fact that this turn, you know what, you're probably not going to take a province. You're not going to, claim some cheeky rings. You're just going to put as much effort into possible as making sure you don't lose province. That was very quick. Bill's back now, so we're up. We're seeing 2 more card draws. It's interesting. Just in this break, was having a little look at the Twitch chat for those of you who are watching this on YouTube. This was streamed originally on Twitch, and at this point in the game, there was some very interesting comments made about how to try and accelerate the Dishonor victory with Asami, and be a bit more aggressive. This is from Toreadory's perspective, to be a bit more aggressive on his part for the Dishonor victory. I think that with the range that they're at, is Dishonor victory something you're keeping in the back of your mind, and maybe you've got some larger strategy where you're slowly working towards it. But I think sometimes it's dangerous to fully commit to that victory condition at the cost of conquest. I think sometimes that's how you can lose games. So we're seeing an enormous defense here as we're getting to like the later turns in the game. We are seeing a 21 point political defense here. Jesus. Sorry, from Toreadory, the massive defense. This is what I'm talking about, being all in on defense. Sometimes that's just the way that you can look at, riding off a turn, knowing that this turn's going to be no good for you from achieving your victory conditions. So you just have to stop your opponent from achieving any objectives of their own. Now, having a favourable ground is obviously extremely handy here, because we might see Toreador eject a personality, which he has just done, which is Kikita Asami, and that will probably make chat happy. But Kikita Asami to continue. Sorry, my mic just cut out there. Okay, so a chunk of that board left. That Crisis Breaker is finally gone. Has been an absolutely terrifying character from turn 1 onwards. So that favor, the favorable ground, ensured that Toreadory could keep the Imperial favor, so that Yoshi can get his ability off. So we'll absolutely see, a 1-1 bid from both characters. So we're down to 1 honor for Bill. So this is a very, very key turn for Toreadory, and maybe that defensive tactic from last turn is going to be super key. So we know that Bill's going to have to go for airing, essentially. He's going to have to do a military air, because he can't let Asami claim that. Can't let Asami use his ability. It's going to be very, very difficult now. It looks like Toreadory is suddenly in the driving seat, the driver's seat. This has been quite an amazing game, right? Toreadory spent all of his fate. He knows that he'll be able to claim at least one fate off a ring when he goes into attack, so that if he does have a Stewie of Law, he'll be able to play that Stewie of Law. And if he's got a tester skill, or he's not running tester skills, but any events that required required fate, he'd be able to play anyway because of Yoshi. So the Doji Hataru is obviously disgusting. Like this Hataru at this point here, it almost closes the game out for Toreadory. Like, I am trying to find a way for Bill not to lose this turn. It seems quite difficult. I guess if Bill plays Away of the Crab and Toreadory chooses Asami or Hataru for some brain freeze reason, maybe maybe Bill's got a way out here. But I think this is looking like it actually might be game for Toreadory. Toreadory might win this, which is very, very impressive. Usually this is an incredibly difficult matchup. Some amazingly tricky plays being made here. So here's the trick. They've obviously both bid one. Bill is in deep, deep thought now. He's doing all of the maths. This is the turn to do all the maths. So that quick play as well. We're actually only in the 47-minute mark of the game, and this is turn 5. And there's been probably 3 or 4 minutes worth of break for the car incident. So this is kind of a testament to why you should play quicker. So that way, when it gets to the point of the game where you do need to spend a bit of time making some very difficult choices, because this is, from Bill's perspective, this is probably the toughest decision he's got to make now, is how to work out this conflict. What ring am I going for? It's probably going to be air, right? What ring am I going for? How am I going to make this happen for me? How am I going to not lose the game? How am I going to win the game? And so it's very, very tough for him. And now he's played the game quick, so he's now built up that time bank. But being an untimed game, it doesn't matter. But it's just being in practice. And if you're going to use GQ for practice for live games, that's a really good point. So Bert's sending Kakita Yoshi, the challenger. It's kind of smart, because you want to be able to just utilize that favor straight away. And I think the guest of honor's turned up. This is the All Stars. This is the Crane All Stars, right? Look at that. You've got Asami, Yoshi, guest of honor, and Hataru all on the table at the same time. So it's very, very. It's a great setup that we have here. What's really interesting is that Bill put covert on the Brash Samurai and not the guest of honor, which probably tells us that either he's trying to sucker the guest of honor to come into this battle, or his hand is trash in terms of conflict cards. So we have seen it initiated now. We're just trying to choose defense. Looks like there was umming and ahhing over the guest of honor. We're seeing Yoshi used so quickly as soon as he chose those defenders. Yoshi, I think Toreadory clicked on that that Yoshi character as fast as humanly possible. Just trying to make sure nothing crazy goes wrong. 10 cards to 4. So Bill's taken the Fine Katana off and attached it to the Borderlands Defender here. I mean, I guess if you Bill, you want to make sure that A, you're winning this conflict, right? And B, you got to take the province. Like, Bill's not going to win through dishonor now, so he's got to find a way to take this province. Otherwise, he's basically it seems basically really, really difficult to do anything here. Now, this Talisman of the Sun is, because Toreadory looks like he's going to close out the Dishonored victory, is not as impactful. So we've already seen the Meditations on the Dow and the Defend the Wall and Manicured Gardens flip. So if we just have a look at the provinces here, Shameful Display is the one that hasn't flipped. That's likely to be because the rally will be on the box. So that's a Shameful Display in between the Manicured Gardens and the Dynasty sides and the Defend the Wall there. So right here, we've got a Shameful Display. So I'm sure that when we see the attack, Toreador attack into the Manicured Garden, it will be steered straight into the Shameful, which potentially can make a difference because Bill will be able to honor, his Shrewd Yusuke or probably most likely his Vanguard Warrior, because if he honors his Vanguard Warrior and he somehow manages to save it getting dishonored, then Bill will be able to sacrifice it immediately to gain an honor, giving him a little bit of extra breathing room. Now, there is something interesting that could happen here. I don't think it will. I'm probably, leaning 95 times, 95 times at least out of 100, Bill would be using Rally on the box, right? But if in the bizarre circumstance, Bill is not using Rally on the box, and in fact has it in his in his row, then this talisman can flip the game completely. Because the rally can then flip it to military. Asami can't use the Asami and Hataru both can't use their ability. Hataru, of course, allows you to resolve a ring effect an additional time when you're an attacker. So the double fire. So we do see that Toreadory has won the military conflict, which was airing. So we're likely to see a fire. Almost certainly going to see a fire here from Toreadory on this attack. But if it does go into rally with that talisman first as the first action, we're seeing some 4D chess played by Bill, and turns out it's not. And that would be game. Well done, Toreadory. What an absolute amazing game. I might just see if we can get Toreadory on stream here. So Toreadory saying he finally got one on you. Is Bill actually eliminated Toreadory from the last Discord Cup? I think it was the top 64, and they've got a bit of a rivalry going on. Very friendly one. They're both great players, but Bill lamenting that he made some mistakes. Thing is, if you look at a lot of the decisions Bill made, it didn't seem like he made a lot of mistakes, but there's probably some very subtle stuff that picked up. I'm just gonna see if I can. I'm just gonna add Toreadory in here to the call. Give me one moment. Hello, Toreadory.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello.
Congratulations.
Pretty good, man.
Yeah, man. Your adrenaline must be pumping.
Yeah, dude. That was an intense game. That first turn, I wasn't expecting Bill to dump so much into that first conflict, and then at the end, I wasn't sure if I came out ahead or not. But he played an assassination, I think, and then he was just really low honor, and I thought as long as he doesn't have a spyglass for the next couple turns, I'm going to win.
Which he did. He did have multiple spyglasses. Yeah. And also, I think
he got them a little too late. I think he got them a little too late.
Yeah, and we did see we did obviously see there was multiple reprieve. That second reprieve seemed to, after you crash that, managed to somehow crush the iron mine, then Voice of Honor the rebuild, then the reprieve comes on. It was just save after save after save.
There were a lot of saves, but that second to last turn, I had two stand your ground still in my hand. So I was kind of thinking to myself that I could actually win the attrition war in the next couple turns. So I was happy to take the game a little smaller.
It's rare that a Crane can say they're going to win the attrition war versus Crab, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
I had all the way of the cranes, but none of the cancels, so it's kind of a wonky,
yeah, that was
wonky.
unlucky. Didn't seem like you played any policy debates either, did you? That
No,
whole game?
I didn't
No.
see a policy
Yeah,
debate.
didn't see a
I
policy
do
debate.
have three, so
Yeah, yeah,
it was
unlucky.
kind of a
But
weird draw.
yeah, that was quite amazing. I think Bill knocked you out of the top 64 last time, right?
Bill has knocked me out of a lot of games. That motherfucker has the wood on me in the long term for sure. But he's a gun player, and we chat occasionally over Discord. So
Yeah,
he's a
cool.
good guy. I like him.
So it looks like the looking forward to the next match. So there's a crane mirror, Eric versus Schutover or Schutover.
Yeah.
So how are you feeling in the crane mirror there? How do you rate your chances against either of those folk?
Well, both of those guys are gun players that consistently finish in the top cuts of these tournaments, and I've played them both of them before, just on Jigoku, and they're both really, really good.
So
Um,
I think
Crane mirrors are innately sickening, but I think the Lion Splash might help out with
so.
like smoothing out the deck a bit.
So if I'm just looking quickly at their deck list, is you see that there's Dragon Splash for one and Scorpion Splash are the two options. You know, what do you think's going to work the best for your deck? Do you want to see Scorpion Splash or Dragon Splash? Both pretty horrible.
I haven't looked at the exact lists, but
Yeah,
I think I'd prefer to play against Scorpion Splash with the Lion.
yeah, 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 for
I
sure.
don't know if Fate Worse than Death's that great against Crane. You've got many ways to kind of avoid it.
Yeah, and I think the ready for
But
battle.
Turn 1 Miramoto's Fury is always good.
Great. All right, well, absolutely amazing game, mate. Very happy for you reaching the top four semi-finals. Get hamped, and
Woohoo! Party time.
yeah, and just know that on the other side of the top four, some 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 lowly ranked players like Daidoji Mika, Mind Desire, P Mittens, and Jokingly. It's like
Bunch of losers. Yeah, bunch of
no.
losers, man.
So you've got four like super strong repeat cup like amazing players. So there's I mean there hasn't been any easy games at all in this top 64, but I think that or in this cup. But I think that now it's just all amazingly strong players. So good luck.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
And thanks to all who watched. It was a fun one to play. I hope it was good to watch.
It was
I'll catch you later.
yeah, see you later, mate. And it was an absolutely ball to cast. So I'll talk to you all soon. That's the end of the stream now. And no doubt there'll be some more amazing casting, some more amazing games coming up in the two semi-finals and the grand final. Talk to you all later. See ya.